You're watching ABC7 News at 7.
To have it be located on the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico in an unprotected offshore marine environment, that's what's really remarkable.
A 7,000-year-old burial ground discovered off of Manasota Key. Human remains have been found. What else is out there? Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Conan. Welcome to ABC7 at 7. We'll have more on the ancient burial ground in a moment. But first, our top 7 stories at 7. You voted for it. Now, how exactly will it be spent? $33 million on its way to the Manatee County School District as part of the property tax increase passed by voters. In November, the property tax bills will come out. Then taxpayers will have 6 months to pay up. Manatee County schools will start to see cash flow by January 1st. However, the extra 30 minutes of instruction time is likely to begin before that in August with the start of the next school year.
I think that we're going to be passing the policy to change the school day, to add the 30 minutes. So start times and end times for the schools, I think, will be on the April 10th agenda. So that's a first big step. And as you may recall, that part of that teacher increase is for the additional 30 minutes.
In August, Manatee County residents can get a gist of how much of this $33 million bill they will be fronting when they get a truth and mileage form in the mail. The deadline is tomorrow to help solve what many call a medical mystery. Manatee County health experts are trying to determine if tainted soil caused former Bayshore High School students to have a higher rate of cancer and autoimmune diseases. More than 200 alumni have already submitted a survey to the health department. Those former students believe they got cancer because of contaminants at the school.
Master's class of 1979. There's 4 leukemias. 3 of those have passed away. And we've recently learned of 3 Lou Gehrig's disease from the exact same class. 2 of those are deceased. And Lou Gehrig's disease, as you know, is extremely rare, just like the leukemias are. And all of these are from the class of 1979, which had a graduating class of approximately 260.
All alumni and staff from 1962 to now have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to submit their survey. In 6 months, a final report will be issued to determine if the medical mystery is linked to Bayshore. An investigation into utilities being stolen led Punta Gorda police to a drug bust. Police responded to a call in the Roma Court neighborhood last week. The caller said his neighbors were using his water without permission. Police wound up finding drugs and paraphernalia, including marijuana, meth, syringes, and weight scales. The 7 people are under arrest and charged with possession. The younger brother of mass school shooter Nicholas Cruz has been released from the Broward County Jail. Zachary Cruz pleading guilty to trespassing on the campus of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School earlier this month. The 18-year-old was sentenced today to 6 months probation and GPS monitoring. Under the terms of his probation, Zachary Cruz is not allowed to possess any firearms, stay 1 mile away from the school, and will be tested for drugs and alcohol periodically. Authorities say Nicholas Cruz has admitted to shooting and killing 17 people at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, but despite his admission, he is actually receiving fan mail. Hundreds of letters coming from all over the U.S. and Europe from young girls, women, and even grown men. Cruz hasn't even seen the mail, and he does not have access to it. State government agencies will be barred from investing in companies doing business with the government of Venezuela under a bill signed into law this week by Governor Rick Scott. The law, which becomes effective July 1st, is intended to put pressure on the regime of the Venezuelan president. The bill expands an action taken by the governor and the attorney general and the chief financial officer last August, banning the Florida retirement system from such investments.
We're adding Venezuela to the list that we divest from, so that taxpayers are not in a position of doing business with collaborators of the dictatorial Venezuelan regime.
The bill was approved without opposition in the legislature. Spring training is over and the 2018 MLB season has officially begun. The Tampa Bay Rays opening today against the Boston Red Sox at Tropicana Field at a sold-out stadium in the game that just went fine, though. It was a rough start for the Rays going into the 8th inning, down 4-0. But a 6-run 8th inning surged the Rays to come behind to victory to get the 6-4 win over the Red Sox. Sorry, Greg. Now let's over to ABC7's meteorologist Steve Newman with the First Alert forecast.
And so it goes for the boys of summer. It's going to be a great season, I think. 60s last night for lows, highs today pretty much in the 80s across all of the Sunshine State. We do have a cold front coming through, but it's not going to drop these temperatures down. It's just going to bring a slight chance of showers as we move into the holiday weekend, I'm afraid. But a slight chance. It's not going to be a washout. Don't worry. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But right now, look at high temperatures, low 80s coast side to mid 80s inland. And it's all because of that strong southeasterly flow coming over the state. Now becoming more southerly. And as the front approaches, winds will come in from a more southwesterly direction. Starting to see hints of that front from the northwest coming across the deep south. It's had a lot of severe weather the last few days across Texas and Mississippi and Louisiana. But it's losing its punch as it approaches us. It's pretty much going to wash out. Let's take a look at the overnight hours and the early hours of tomorrow in high definition through our Futurecast. And you can see things will moisten up overnight and tomorrow with southerly winds blowing for the most part. But those showers will probably hold off, or the chance of them, until this time tomorrow evening, more like 8, 9, 10 o'clock through about sunrise on Saturday. We'll talk more about the weekend forecast. Let's talk about the evening right now, and winds will decrease. It's been blustery all day today, with the temperatures cooling off into the 60s overnight, Alan.
And good news for the Rays over the dreaded Red Sox.
Yes.
Good news for the Yankee fans out there also over Toronto. Still to come, what is being discovered off the shore of Manasota Key.
My name is Luke Perry, and I am 1 million strong. I'm in the fight against colorectal cancer because I believe we can win it. Colon and rectal cancers are the second leading cause of cancer deaths among men and women in the U.S. Colon cancer is preventable. Know the risk factors and make sure to get screened. There are simple, take-home options available. Take control of your health. Screening for colon cancer isn't embarrassing. It can be life-saving. To find out more about your options, visit fightcrc.org.
Since 1972, Sleep King has provided quality mattresses and accessories at the best discounted prices available. Top brands like Simmons, Sealy, Serta, Beautyrest, iComfort, and more. With available free delivery, free financing, and free setup and removal. For a comfortable night's sleep with same-day delivery, even if we have to carry it on our backs. Trust Sleep King of Sarasota. Buy it today, sleep on it tonight.
Selfless service is the principle that guides Army National Guard soldiers to be ready whenever disaster strikes. They have a stake in the well-being of the neighborhoods where they live and work. They train part-time to be ready to serve at all times. Selfless service. It's what inspires the men and women of the Army National Guard to be part of something greater than themselves. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more.
Every time you purchase a fishing license or register your boat, you're helping to preserve our nation's coastlines, lakes, rivers, and streams, protecting memories for generations to come. Learn how your participation in boating and fishing can help the environment at takemefishing.org/conservation.
You know, fortunately, this was my first job out of college, so I was able to come back home and work in my hometown. I wore two hats. I was sports director and I was a news anchor. I did that for a few years and then decided to go full-time into news. Well, I love our team here at ABC7. We have a great mix, and it really is a great mix of personalities, of experience that meshes really well into a really strong team. I'm Scott Dennis, and I'm here for you.
Get breaking news alerts focused on the Suncoast. Download the ABC7 News app.
A once-in-a-lifetime find off of Manasota Key. Researchers are investigating a 7,000-year-old Native American burial ground, where it was discovered and what makes it unique. It's a quarter of a mile off the coast, under 20 feet of water. ABC's 7's Christopher Brantley is here with the story. Christopher.
Well, good evening, Alan. This finding has gained national attention because it's one of a kind, only one to be found in North and South America, and it's the only one of 3 in the entire world. It's a remarkable story of survival, over 7,000 years of hurricanes and sea level rise, and it's still there. The relaxing shores of Manasota Key belie the excitement researchers feel when standing on the beach.
We don't see human remains preserved in a marine setting. That's something that does not exist in North or South America.
At least, that's what researchers thought, until a surprise discovery last year changed everything.
A Middle Archaic site that dates to approximately 7,200 years ago that has worked wood and human burials.
The ancient site is on the floor of the Gulf of Mexico, under 20 feet of water.
To have it be located on the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico in an unprotected offshore marine environment, that's what's really remarkable.
Dr. Ryan Duggins is the underwater archaeology supervisor with the Department of State Bureau of Archaeological Research. He tells us the site was found almost by accident when a diver stumbled upon it.
There was a local diver who was searching for megalodon teeth, fossil hunting, who recovered a skeletal element and contacted my office about it.
2 weeks later, state researchers, led by Dr. Duggins, came down from Tallahassee to see it for themselves. Native American burial grounds are not unfamiliar around Florida. What makes this find so remarkable is that it's remained intact over 7,000 years of hurricanes while being immersed in salt water, which isn't known for preservation.
Normally, it breaks it down and would start the decaying process immediately. And what we found to be remarkable about this site is that when it was used, when people were actually interring the deceased there, it was actually a small freshwater pond.
Researchers speculate sea level rise is responsible for burying the site and part of Florida over the last several thousand years. It's believed the burial site used to be a freshwater pond with a peat bottom.
And that peat is what allowed the excellent preservation that we've documented.
The human remains were buried using an ancient method, one that was not very particular and not widely used.
Wrap the deceased in a fabric cloth, put them on the bottom of a pond, and then take a series of worked, sharpened wooden branches or stakes, kind of place them around the individual to help kind of secure them in place.
For Dr. Duggins, the discovery is personal. He guessed sites like this were out there, but until now, he had no proof.
When I was in school, people told me you could not find a site like this, that sites like this would not survive sea level rise over thousands of years.
But it did survive, and now the task is to preserve it.
We are most concerned with disturbance to the site, either intentionally or unintentionally.
Security measures have been put in place to ensure no one goes to see it for themselves. Local law enforcement are also keeping an eye out. The remains could be reinterred sometime in the future. Dr. Duggins and his team are working alongside the Native American Seminole tribe to decide what to do next.
I hope we can use this site to kind of expand our focus on the continental shelf to look for other significant archaeological sites.
Now, we broadcast the first story on this dig earlier this year, but in full disclosure, we have been looking into the story for months. However, the burial site had not yet been protected by the state of Florida. We agreed to wait to broadcast the story until security cameras could be put in place to ensure that no one is able to disturb this historic site.
Christopher, thank you. In a moment, we dive into the discussion. What else will we discover at the mysterious trapezoid?
I used to dread getting up and going to work.
I was done with the corporate grind.
I was tired of being a starving artist.
And I started looking around for a business that I believed in, and I kind of wanted to do something a little more green.
My SCORE mentor helped me take the first step.
He helped me create a business plan and helped me implement it.
They've really taught me how to think big.
SCORE helped me to make the unimaginable possible.
All for free. I'm here because of SCORE.
I'm here because of SCORE.
Get your free business mentor at score.org.
You now have the power to prioritize your Facebook feed and get local news and information from the team you trust. Go to the ABC7 Sarasota page on Facebook. Give us a like, then click following and choose See First. That's it. Customize even more by choosing notifications. Choose breaking news, posts, live videos, anything you want to see in real time. Take control of your newsfeed and stay connected to what's happening in your community with ABC7 on Facebook.
Studio Theater presents Blue Suede Shoes, celebrating the birth of rock and roll. From the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry, to the king himself, Elvis Presley, this musical review features such great hits as Rock Around the Clock, Mustang Sally, Johnny Be Good, and of course, Blue Suede Shoes. Critics are calling Blue Suede Shoes a burst of rock history, dynamic and high voltage. Audiences are calling it phenomenal. Blue Suede Shoes has been held over by popular demand. Tickets can be purchased by calling 941-366-9000 or by visiting floridastudiotheater.org.
Thanks to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, what was once impossible is happening today for thousands of patients with blood cancer.
I live.
I live. I live. I live.
I live.
She lives.
Because of the research done by the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in the battle against blood cancer.
If you had a chance to support the research that is saving lives, what would you do?
Welcome back. What is more amazing, discovery of a 7,000-year-old Native American burial ground, or the fact because of sea level rise, that's climate change, folks, the burial ground was discovered 300 feet off of Minnesota Key under 20 feet of water. It is truly an amazing find, a submerged burial ground, preserved human remains. How did that happen? What can we learn, and what do we do to make sure it is preserved? Joining us for more, John McCarthy, Executive Director of the Historic Spanish Point, John Thaxton of the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, and ABC7 reporter Christopher Brantley. Gentlemen, as I said, this is so fascinating for so many different reasons. John, when you first heard about this and you saw really the preliminary reports of what is out there, what were your questions in terms of what we can learn from it?
Well, I think that when you look at Sarasota County in this region, you see a whole constellation of prehistoric sites, and this one is kind of filling in a gap. You've got Little Salt Spring at 12,000 years before present, War Mineral at 10,000. You've got places like Historic Spanish Point with shell middens that are 5,000 years old. And here you have this 7,000-year-old site submerged in the Gulf of Mexico, which is reflective of some of the other sites that have been found around the state of Florida, but never before in the marine environment.
If you could explain, and I know that per se you're not a scientist to this degree, but how was it preserved? From my understanding, the humans who were buried were buried at the bottom of freshwater ponds in peat, and in a way that preserved them. And I mean, is there anything that we don't understand about that, or is that a common or uncommon way people of that era dealt with human remains?
There are 4 or 5 other sites in Florida where these similar type of interments have been found in a freshwater environment. Some in a bayhead swamp, some in a cypress swamp. Some in what was called a muck pond, and these occurred outside of Zolfo Springs, down in Naples, also on the east coast near Titusville, and then in Little Salt Slough, adjacent to Little Salt Spring here in Sarasota in a marsh. And so when you have this organic peat that is building up over a long period of time, it becomes somewhat anaerobic. and therefore the bacteria are not breaking down the organic materials the way you would expect them to, and indeed they preserve them. I think what's remarkable about this site is it wasn't just preserved once, it was essentially preserved twice. Preserved originally by the peat, but then also covered with sand as sea level rose, and preserved again another time, and then sealed away until some wave action has exposed it to modern day.
John, this is unique from so many different perspectives, and here you have a historic scientific site that is off our beaches, and the state really has to engage organization like yours to help the public understand what's out there, why it's important, and why it needs to be protected.
Yeah, we were actually honored when Secretary Dentzer called our office to engage the Gulf Coast Community Foundation and not only preserving the site, but educating the public as to its value. One of the core principles of Gulf Coast is to build this sense of place, this sense of meaning in what we call Sarasota County, and to have an example of citizens living and engaging in social activities 7,200 plus years ago in Sarasota County is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to engage the entire community in recognizing just what a special place this is.
And Christopher, aside from the historic and the scientific issues here, you're also dealing with an ancient, Native American burial ground, and whenever that comes up throughout the country, that raises a whole lot of other sensitive issues.
It does, absolutely, because we have to remember these are human remains. And there are folks, the Seminole tribe, just a little south of us, is headquartered. They want to make sure that all of this is handled very carefully, that it's handled with respect. We have to remember that is a gravesite.
All right, and we will get into that more in our next segment. We are just getting warmed up. We'll have much more on the ancient burial ground right after we check the First Alert weather. Stay with us.
My life motto is keep moving. And as hard as it was when my husband passed away, I knew I had to keep doing what I love. Oops, coming. But I needed help with my insurance, and that's what the NAIC provides. They have resources to help you and your family make the best decision, and they'll help you to keep moving forward, just like me.
I'm Anne. I'm a scientist.
Recycling takes a team.
Why don't you let me and me help you out?
Everyone plays a part. Don't trash
I love taking stuff apart and building new things out of it.
what could be treasure.
Pal's my most advanced android. This is awesome. You haven't seen anything yet.
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
All hands on deck. What's up? I want to point out 3 tips for using the home computer more safely. Point away.
First, stop. Make sure your software is up to date and that you've password protected your computer's login and Wi-Fi connection.
Next, think before visiting a site, opening attachments, or clicking on links.
Then connect, knowing you're helping make the web safer for you
and for everyone. Make Stop, Think, Connect part of your daily online routine.
We are problem solvers striving for answers. Relevancy on every platform. We are driven to create content that's compelling, engaging, where it matters. We are neighbors that care about solutions, believers in making a difference, leaders, innovating in an exciting era of multimedia, reaching to always be the gold standard in our evolving landscape. We are Raycom Media. Find your opportunity today.
Our conversation on the ancient burial ground continues right after we get a check on the first alert forecast with meteorologist Steve Newman. Steve.
Hey, Alan, I'm fascinated by tonight's subject. A great day over Sarasota Bay. Strong southerly winds helped the sailing over Sarasota Bay. They had the regatta in today. The sails were full, the skies were sparkling, and look, it's going to be a beautiful sunset with hardly a cloud in the sky. Currently at the airport, temperatures coming in at 75 degrees. Dew point up to 62 because of that sea breeze coming in on a southerly wind at 14 miles an hour. And if the wind is blowing from due south, the way Florida's arranged, that is an onshore breeze for us. Our high this afternoon, 82, last night 60, and that's a little bit above normal on both counts. The record low for the state, 40, set back in 1919 when Sarasota was just getting started as a little sleepy fishing village. Look at those south winds uniformly from top to bottom and east and west across our viewing area, right about 10 miles per hour. We've dropped off around 4 or 5 miles per hour since the height of the wind this afternoon, when they were occasionally even gusting up to 20 miles per hour. There's a southerly wind flow you can see very clearly on the satellite as the sun begins to set over the Bahamas. But the clouds thinned out. There was a lot of them this morning, especially down over the southeastern corner of the state. But look, as the day progressed, they kind of thinned out as the heat of the day allowed them to evaporate. And radar right now, you're not seeing anything in the way of rainfall. We have to go way back up to the center part of the Gulf Coast. And this is our next weather maker, right now passing New Orleans, moving into Louisiana. And that front has had a history of producing 4 days of severe weather back across Texas and the deep south. And the Storm Prediction Center thinks there's a chance of it tonight, but right from Mobile, Alabama up through Mississippi, almost to Atlanta. And tomorrow, just garden variety thunder showers. That's the outlook for tomorrow from the Storm Prediction Center. You can see it is breaking apart, being influenced by high pressure that's been controlling our weather. And by the time this front gets here, there's only the slightest chance we'll see a few drops of rain, some clouds here and there. But the whole Easter Passover weekend should be pretty spectacular. Don't worry about it. It's not going to wash you out at all. Temperatures from coast to coast, 52 at New York City, 41 at Chicago, Denver, down to 34. Beautiful weather in San Francisco, 80 degrees. This time of year when it's that way, it's sparkling as well. Here's my forecast for tonight. Skies will be clear to fair. 64, the overnight low temperature. That is 4 degrees above normal with the south wind blowing 5 to 10 miles per hour. And tomorrow, look for a mostly sunny day to partly sunny and windy. The clouds will increase as the day goes on, as that front approaches. And the clouds and winds, too, gusting up to 20 by late afternoon and early evening. A little warmer than normal. Here's your 7-day, showing it's not going to be a washout. Don't worry. Tomorrow's sunset for Passover is at 7:46 p.m. and that's about the time the chance of rain kicks in. It's the highest chance, 30%, from late on Friday evening till about sunrise Saturday. Then it drops to the same 20% chance we're going to have for another 2 days. So all in all, not a washout. The weather's going to be warm. You're going to get plenty of sunshine, and any rain we get, we actually kind of need. Al will be back with his guest right after these words.
Since 1972, Sleep King has provided quality mattresses and accessories at the best discounted prices available. Top brands like Simmons, Sealy, Serta, Beautyrest, iComfort, and more. With available free delivery, free financing, and free setup and removal. For a comfortable night's sleep with same-day delivery, even if we have to carry it on our backs. Trust Sleep King of Sarasota. Buy it today, sleep on it tonight.
So I kind of grew up all across the country. I come from 5 generations of military men. My dad is still active duty. My grandpa is retired Marines. I like going for runs with my dog. I love, taking her out to the dog beach over in Venice. There are so many things here to do on the Suncoast. My goal every day when I come into work at ABC7 is to tell your stories, give you that major local news and those details that you really care about. I'm Jacqueline Matter, and I'm here for you.
Are you a food lover, restaurant goer, or home cook? Then check out My Suncoast Dining on mysuncoast.com, your guide to the foodie lifestyle. ABC7's own Chef Judy serves up her favorite recipes, cooking tips and trends, dining blogs, and helpful step-by-step videos. And you'll love the restaurant guide with direct links to your favorite Suncoast eateries. Whether you're cooking in or dining out, whet your appetite with tasty tips from Chef Judy at mysuncoast.com/dining.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
They are the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. But what does it take to bridge the distance and keep them connected to family, home, and country? What does it take to strengthen our service members so they can be the greatest force for good in the world? It takes a force. Be a force behind the forces. Give today at force.uso.org.
Welcome back. We're talking about what we can learn from an ancient burial ground off of the Florida coast. Joining us for more are John McCarthy, Executive Director of Historic Spanish Point, John Thaxton of the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, and ABC7 reporter Christopher Brantley. John, what can we learn from this ancient burial ground? What kind of answers are contained within the material out there?
Well, I think one of the things that really resonates with the community, especially the folks in Inglewood and Manasota Key, they've found fossils for years that represent things that are 10 million years old, like the shark's teeth. But they've also found fossils of bison and horse and all these Pleistocene animals that were here from 10 to 20,000 years ago. Well, now you have these human remains offshore, and so it causes you to really think about where we boat and fish and swim used to be dry ground. And there was woods and fields and creeks and marshes and so I think that people are fascinated by not just the burials themselves, but this prehistoric environment that existed out on that shelf. And there's all covered by sand. And so it's very similar to the habitats that we have in the undeveloped parts of our community, but it was all, it's now all underwater. And so it makes you wonder how many other sites are underwater, how many other prehistoric sites are out there that just haven't been discovered.
Well, it also raises one of the more thornier issues of our times, and that is sea level rise and climate change, because as we mentioned at the outset, this is a burial site that used to be on land but is now in salt water, and that says a lot about how the sea level around Florida has changed over these thousands of years. And I would imagine, John, even within this amazing discovery, there is a renewed debate about sea level rise in Florida and how it does threaten the state.
Well, I don't think there could be too much debate on whether or not there's sea level rise in the state of Florida. I think the only debate would be limited to whether or not man contributes to the acceleration or deceleration of sea level rise. Just as we know that this site was well inland of the coast 7,000 plus years ago, we also know that the place that we're sitting right here today in this studio was once 15 or 20 feet underwater, and the dry land was in the archipelago of what is now known as the Lake Wales Ridge. So there's clearly been dramatic changes in sea level rise, and the impact is magnified in such a flatland such as we see in the state of Florida. So clearly this site was in freshwater. We know that because of the detritus that created the peat composite that the material was found in. And we can also look to other very telling tales that things were much different 7,000 years ago than what they were today in terms of the natural environment and the location of our coastline.
Christopher, one of the things, and you referenced this in your story, that we've known about the existence of this site well before it was made public, but we agreed to not report it while the state worked to make the site secure. What do you mean in terms of making the site secure? The Coast Guard's not out there patrolling the perimeter.
No, absolutely not. But the thing is, they did not have any, there wasn't as much public awareness. The folks who live off the coast, because there are homes there, they didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of it at the time when we first found out about it. There are now, as I'm told, security cameras that have been put in place to keep the area secure. Local law enforcement is now aware and keeping an eye out for anything that seems strange. If you have a dive operation, as I understand it, it's not a small operation. Your boat has to stay there for a little while. You have to kind of stay anchored about. Residents nearby can see that and can call in if something is strange.
John, is the state or the people who are investigating this concerned about the continued security of the site? I mean, I know that cameras have been put up, but it's impossible to guard the site with personnel 24/7. Has anybody tried to do anything malicious?
Well, we have had, the site has been compromised once since it has been discovered.
In what way?
There were individuals that dove on the site, and there's clear evidence of excavation where material was almost certainly removed, and likely some of that material could have been human remains, which is a clear violation of state statute, not to mention the fact that it's just morally corruptible.
We have a lot of folks who go diving for shark's teeth. I mean, that's how this was found.
Yes.
Is it possible that someone was diving for shark's teeth, or do you imagine that it's a coincidence that cannot have happened? Somebody had to have known.
It is possible that that is the circumstances, but the people who were at the site were questioned, and it's pretty clear that that's not what happened.
Any criminal charges pending out there?
No, it's very difficult to prosecute these types of infractions, and you need pretty clear and compelling evidence.
So what are we doing in terms of contacting Native American tribes, in terms of having them partner, in terms of dealing with the human remains and the site in the most respectful way? What happens in the future? I mean, do we remove any possible human remains and any artifacts that were found there and preserve them, you know, on shore, or do we somehow allow this to stay exactly where it is?
Before, I'm going to just interrupt, John, because I just want to put in a plug for the Seminole tribe. They were engaged early on in this process, and they have been just remarkable partners. We could not have gotten to where we are today without their cooperation. So I'll let John, you answer the question directly.
With both burial sites as well as archaeological sites, it's never the state's goal to go in and dig it up. Oftentimes these sites are found during a construction project or found by accident. So they involve doing salvage operations to learn what they can from what's already been disturbed. When you have sites on state-owned land, for instance, the process is to basically leave them intact. This one's a little different, of course, because being submerged, it is being changed by the currents of the Gulf and the sand and that sort of thing, probably on a daily basis. So there has been conversation. There's no intent to remove the burials. The intent is to understand the extent of the pond, to better understand that environment, to understand how big it is and the significance of it. And then, again, working with the Seminole tribe representatives to find the most respectful way to preserve it.
Right, so does that mean, because, you know, the ocean is changing, the shores are changing, what's in, you know, our oceans are changing, that inevitably what is out there in terms of the burial ground is going to go away at some point?
Well, or be covered up by sand again. And so it's been covered up by sand. It's now been, a portion of it has been uncovered. So it could be covered up again by sand, or greater parts of it could be uncovered. And those are natural processes. And so that's not as bad as someone going out and deliberately, you know, disturbing the site. If natural processes are going to take their course, that's going to happen, and it's not preventable.
John, is the Gulf Coast Community Foundation working on a way to memorialize what is there and educate our local residents and the public in general what is there?
Ours is not so much to memorialize, but clearly to educate and to instruct the community on just how significant and important a global site that this is. We leave it up to the experts, such as the archaeologists and Secretary Detzer's office and others, to do the work. Our role is to engage the community and just, you know, to let the people of the South County, and for that matter the region, just know how important this is.
Okay, we will have to leave it there. But before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on the city of Sarasota suing the drug companies. The Suncoast has some of the highest rates of opioid abuse per capita in the country. That may be why the city of Sarasota has filed suit against the makers and sellers of opioid-based drugs. We went to Facebook to hear your thoughts. Mallory says, ridiculous. A manufacturer is not responsible for misuse and or abuse of the product by the consumer. If the manufacturer advertised and sold directly to the consumers, that would be a different situation. As it stands now, there are 3 to 5 steps between the manufacturer and the consumer, and the manufacturer does not control those steps. Kathy says absolutely justified. You can't convince me that they have been unaware of the massive overuse and pill mills, funds towards treatment, rescue, and law enforcement. And John says, don't the folks that prescribe the medications have some responsibility too? Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest on local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's expired, just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. John McCarthy, Executive Director of Historic Spanish Point, John Thaxton of the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, and ABC7 reporter Christopher Brantley. When we return, we'll be joined by USF Sarasota economics professor Michael Snipes, who will be here to share his secrets on how to invest your money. Stay with us.
Florida Studio Theater presents Blue Suede Shoes, celebrating the birth of rock and roll. From the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry, to the king himself, Elvis Presley, this musical review features such great hits as Rock Around the Clock, Mustang Sally, Johnny Be Good, and of course, Blue Suede Shoes. Critics are calling Blue Suede Shoes a burst of rock history, dynamic and high voltage. Audiences are calling it phenomenal. Blue Suede Shoes has been held over by popular demand. Tickets can be purchased by calling 941-366-9000 or by visiting floridastudiotheater.org.
One of the motivating factors for me to become a Big Brother was that I was mentored as a youth. And it was important for me to kind of pass forward the things that were kind of given to me. It's really just as simple as getting to know a kid. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to have any of those other things. You just have to be willing to spend a little time and help mold some young person's life.
Chris Domine is a husband, father, an athlete, even an Ironman. But 10 years ago, Chris's kidneys were failing.
The doctor said if you don't do dialysis, if you don't get a kidney transplant, you are going to die.
Then Chris received a second chance, made possible by an organ donor.
Your well-being changes from loss of hope to better times ahead.
Imagine what you could make possible. Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov.
Enjoy some of the best Suncoast restaurants on me. Just go to mysuncoast.com/dining, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, and you can win a $50 gift card to a restaurant in our area. We'll pick a winner each week, so go on our website and sign up now.
Welcome back. If somebody came to you asking for a suggestion in what to invest in, what would you tell them in terms of ideas? Well, luckily we have USF Sarasota Manatee economics professor Michael Snipes, who is here tonight as always. And we're talking, Michael, about mutual funds, but what mutual funds really are a way to invest in cereal.
Well, not necessarily cereal per se, but this is a question that I get all the time. When people find out that I teach economics, what should I invest in? Where should I put my money? And generally speaking, kind of the first suggestion that I have is to go into mutual funds. And so I think it'd be interesting to say, well, what exactly is a mutual fund? So the way I like to think about it is I like to think of it as this multi-pack of cereal. So when you buy into a mutual fund, you're not necessarily buying stock in one particular company. What you're doing is you're buying a product that is really made up of lots of individual stocks. So you have one product that you buy this entire multi-pack, but it's really made up of individual stocks. And so why I think that it's generally a good idea is because what it generally does is it offers you a nice balance between risk and return. So a lot of the time most people don't like to take on risk, but we would like to have some sort of return. So The way I like to think about it is, let's say that I have $100, and I take my $100 and I can either invest in my mutual fund, or I can take my money and I can spend it all on one thing. So why is it that the mutual fund is generally going to be the better option between those two choices? Well, let's say that I take my $100 and I spend it all on one thing. Well, if that company goes out of business, then I lose all of the money that I have invested in that company, right? So if instead I go with the mutual fund, then, well, we see that I've spent all of my money on Raisin Bran here, for example, and part of my mutual fund is Raisin Bran as well. But if I invest all of my money in Raisin Bran and Raisin Bran goes out of business, I lose all of that money. But if it goes out of business, well, then really all I've lost is this little piece here, and I still have the rest of my money available. So it's generally going to be a safer option because you don't have everything in one pile. You have a lot of smaller piles so that if one goes bad, you still have the bulk of your money left.
Let me ask you a quick question. Does this become more complicated because we are in a time when there are efforts to deal with mutual funds in terms of a particular stock, a particular industry, a particular company that is politically, not persona non grata?
Well, really the idea is, again, just to kind of try and diversify risk. And when you buy into a mutual fund, you're not necessarily going to know exactly everything that's there. I mean, most people aren't going to read the document that comes with it because it's usually pretty thick. But that is information that is available if you want to, and you could know exactly what it is you're investing in, what type of cereal you're eating.
All right. Well, we know what's for dinner. Michael, thank you very much. Michael joins us every other Thursday to discuss economics and how it could be beneficial to you. When we return, we'll have a final look at your first alert weather. Plus, the president fires yet another cabinet secretary. He picked himself. Who's been voted off the island now?
The Wild Broadway series brings you Funny Girl. Fanny Bryce dreams of being famous and through sheer guts and determination becomes a star of the Ziegfeld Follies. Playing March 28th through April 15th, it's the songs and story that generations have grown to love. Call the Players Center at 365-2494 or visit us at theplayers.org. Don't rain on my parade. Come see Funny Girl.
Growing up, my mom was afraid of the water, something she did not want me to feel.
So I enrolled Missy in swim lessons.
It changed my life.
Missy Franklin.
And now you can do the same for someone that you love.
There's nothing more precious than your child's well-being.
So act now, before it's too late.
Make us swim! I'm glad I did.
Thanks, Mom. Visit usaswimmingfoundation.org to find, get, or give a swim lesson.
Imagine a world filled with pillow fights, playgrounds, and the search for the perfect climbing tree. Every kid deserves that world, but 1 in 5 kids in America struggle with hunger. At No Kid Hungry, we're committed to creating a world where every kid eats healthy food every day. We raise funds, we help families, and we lift up communities.
I witnessed him have 2 heart attacks in ICU. He went through seizures.
We'd much rather have Aaron like this than dead. A lot of parents don't have that luxury.
He can't talk. He can't walk. This is a condition Aaron will live with for the rest of his life because he abused prescription pills.
Mind your meds. Learn more from the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
Your primetime headlines are coming up in a moment, but right now let's get a final check on our first alert forecast with meteorologist Steve Newman. Steve.
Hey, Alan, even with the winds today, it was a great day to be outside and enjoy everything the Suncoast has to offer. Lots of sunshine, sparkling visibilities, and a great sunset in progress right now. Nice afterglow from our sunset at 7:45. Tomorrow's sunset for your Seder will be at 7:46. Here is the look at viewer pictures. Thank you for sending these pictures. And Douglas Wenzel sent this great shot of the sunset last night from Siesta Key Village. And a bay full of sails today. I was out there in City Island and watched the Sarasota Sailing Squadron's Flying Scott Midwinter Races, the day 4 of the last day today, and they got them in with a lot of sunshine and good breezes, and the winds were from the right direction for them. Thanks to Cindy Desmond for sending in this picture of a windy Venice beach, but people were still out there enjoying the beach. And thanks to Jack Waters for the Tacoma sunset last night. Send your pics to pics@mysuncoast.com. We love getting them. We'll try and get them on the air for you. Currently, there is the afterglow of sunset over Sarasota Bay, where it is now 75 degrees, dew point 62 with the humidity of 64% and a south wind blowing. High temperatures today across the state, low to mid 80s just about everywhere. And across our viewing area, low 80s coastside, mid 80s inland. That influence of the sea breeze kept things a little cooler since the water temperature is only 70, and the air blowing off that water keeps things a little milder than inland. A lot of clouds this morning over southeast Florida, but as the day progressed and the temperature went up, they kind of just dissipated over the state. A few came over from time to time, but a mainly fair day and no rain yet. Nothing appearing on the radar scope. We got to go way back up to the center Gulf Coast to our next weather maker, now moving over the mouth of the Mississippi River and through parts of the deep south, almost touching Pensacola right now. It's moving into Florida. The Storm Prediction Center has its eye out for this area as this front moves eastward. High pressure that's been our weather dominator for the last week or so has been pushing up against this, and it's just eroding the moisture and the energy from this front. While the high is going to weaken, the front will come through in a much weakened state itself. So don't expect a lot in the chance of rain for Saturday and Sunday, just a slight chance. It was as warm today in San Francisco as it was in Miami. They're having great weather out west, 80 at Houston as well, 65 at Albuquerque this afternoon. If you're heading out on the beach and boating, winds will be from the south at 10 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. Bay and inland waters will have a light chop. The beach temperature tomorrow is 79. It should be great. And all weekend long, you're going to be in the upper 70s to low 80s for your beach. There'll just be a few more clouds from time to time, and the slightest chance a stray shower could pop up. Here's my forecast for tonight. Look for it to be fair to partly cloudy with our low temperature 64 and the wind slowly subsiding to under 10 miles an hour, pretty close to 5 miles an hour by dawn. Then the winds pick up tomorrow as the front approaches, gusting up to 20 miles per hour at time. 80, the high temperature, average high for the state is 78 with partly sunny skies. Clouds increase tomorrow evening. 80 degrees the high temperature. We have a 30% chance of showers from about this time tomorrow evening through sunrise on Saturday. Then it goes down to 20% chance and stays that way into the early part of next week. Only the slightest chance we're going to see a shower. It's not a washout. It's going to be a great Easter weekend. And frankly, any drop of rain we get, we need. Alan will be back with his primetime headlines right after these important words. Stay with us, please.
I'll be right back.
Don't allow your weight to threaten your health or control your future. Excess weight or obesity can cause emotional and physical health risks. But you can take control. The Your Weight Matters campaign offers free resources and tips to help you measure and understand your weight. Take the Your Weight Matters Challenge. The free toolkit prepares you to speak with a healthcare provider about your weight. Your weight does matter. Take the challenge and take control today.
Dear parents, it's time for a pop quiz. What's the best kind of play for kids? Play that makes us think? Or helps us pretend? Or teaches us rules? Or to be creative? Actually, every kind of play is important because different kinds of play give us different kinds of skills. Help us mix up the ways we play. Okay, class dismissed. Now go play.
I'll be right back. Hi! You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
Mark Zupan, part of the U.S. Paralympic rugby team.
In my game, movement is everything. I get frustrated when my move is blocked, especially when that guy has no right to be there, even just for a minute. I love a challenge, but I don't like to play this game every day.
A message from the United Spinal Association.
Checking primetime headlines, President Trump has sacked yet another senior member of his administration. VA Secretary David Shulkin fired overnight with the White House doctor named to replace him. ABC's Tara Palmieri has more.
Secretary of Veterans Affairs David Shulkin out. His firing announced in a tweet. Shulkin is the fourth member of the president's cabinet to depart in little over a year.
I've made some changes because I wasn't happy with the speed with which our veterans were taken care of.
His resignation follows an Inspector General report revealing that he brought his wife on a European tour where they attended a Wimbledon match, costing the taxpayers $122,000. Shulkin, an Obama administration holdover, told NPR his firing was a political attack, claiming he was targeted because he opposed the department's shift towards privatization. He said the administration would let him defend himself against the damaging IG report.
So this was completely mischaracterized. There was nothing improper about this trip.
President Trump nominated White House Doctor Admiral Ronnie Jackson to replace him. Jackson's appointment comes after his glowing review of the president's health.
I told the president that if he had a healthier diet over the last 20 years, he might live to be 200 years old.
President Trump recently said he's close to having his dream cabinet, hinting that there's more shakeups to come.
Chaos is the new normal. President Trump actually is pretty comfortable with all of the churn, the revolving door around his own White House.
Veterans groups praise Shulkin's work, but have been cautious in their statements about Jackson. They're concerned about his lack of managerial experience. The VA is the second largest government agency, serving more than 9 million veterans. Tara Palmieri, ABC News, Washington.
And Shulkin wasn't the only one leaving the White House today. Today was the last day for the former communications director, Hope Hicks. President Trump said goodbye to her outside the Oval Office. He kissed her on the cheek and shook her hand. She is one of Trump's closest and longest-serving aides. She resigned in late February, a day after she testified before the House Intelligence Committee, stating that she told white lies in the course of her duties. A judge is denying a request from porn star Stormy Daniels' lawyer to depose President Trump and his attorney, Michael Cohen. Yesterday, Daniels' lawyer asked for an expedited trial and expedited discovery. He wanted 2 hours depositions with both Trump and Cohen, but a federal judge in California denied the request, calling it premature. The judge said Trump and Cohen have not had enough time to file a petition to compel arbitration, which they are planning to do. And the New York Yankees were in Toronto today to take on the Blue Jays. The Yankees dominated the Jays, beating them 6-1. Newly acquired Giancarlo Stanton got his career in pinstripes off to a memorable start, hitting a 2-run home run in his first at-bat. Stanton added an RBI double in the 5th and another home run in the 9th. Luis Severino pitched 5 2/3 innings for the win, allowing just 1 hit, while fanning 7 to get the win. That's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.